Alright, Summoners, this is MP Blaze of New Nation. Today I'm bringing you 3 wars, 2 fights in each, and this first one is against Ny718. I'm going to be quaking this thing on Hazard Shift Mini. It's not a hard fight. I will have suicides on and max boosted. It's just quake and shake. The only worry here is him possibly throwing his heavy from slow quake play. But with Thing, it's not too much of an issue. You can still quake and shake the whole thing. It's not like fighting a Modok here, which can be a lot more difficult and a lot more nerve-wracking. So here we are, just quake and shake. Only health lost is from that initial bleed from half suicides. I don't have full suicides on so that I'm not taking any poison damage during the fight over time. So, and you can see here we're almost at a minute 15 and he's already a little past half health. So it's the suicides just to help the fight go by faster. Usually when I'm quaking stun immune nodes, I'm not looking at the health bar at all. I'm just focused on quake and shake the entire time, making sure I don't slow up or anything so that I can take care of them pretty quickly. But, I mean, we've had Thing as mini bosses in AQ before, so this isn't anything new. And that's the last Aftershock. And then moving on to the boss fight. This was probably the most interesting fight of the season, and it's a Mangog boss. He is really new, so we had a couple ideas, either Human Torch with pre-fight or Void. When we got here, we went with Void, but the entire time I was thinking Human Torch with pre-fight, just to deal with, or just so that we have a counter to the MD and the power gain that he passively gains to SP2. So game plan here, you're not doing full 5-hit combos, whether you end in a light or a medium, because that will build his rage. Another thing is that when he does get to SP1, we want to hold block and turtle so that we can push him to SP2 so that he doesn't gain more rage from activating SP1. We don't want him to get enraged because his specials will be unblockable, and you'll have to have a special loaded and ready to throw to remove the unstoppable, the permanent unstoppable he gains from becoming enraged. So you'll see here the SP2 and the block damage is actually quite bad. Which wasn't what we were anticipating. The goal here was to play him like Thing with attack masteries removed, which is where I'm throwing SP1 until we get to Fear the Void, and then we're just holding specials and letting the damage over time do the work. And what we were hoping was with his passive power gain and MD that Fear the Void would keep him at pretty low power for the remainder of the fight once it placed. And then what you're seeing here, Fear the Void is up, but I've only got 1 debuff, and we're almost halfway through the Fear the Void timer. So there might have been some worry as to his power gain being an issue, even with Fear the Void up for my Void, which is a lower SIG 120. So you see here, I'm pushing him to SP2. The block damage, I'm almost at 50% health, and he isn't quite there yet. And those special 2s, if you remember from the beginning of the fight, do quite a bit of damage. Frozen SP1 there, no big deal. He's not enraged yet. It's not till he reaches 10. But now Fear the Void's gone. So now I'm kind of a little worried that the block damage might kill me because I'm having to do short combos and take a lot of block hits, and he's not staying below 2 bars of power. And you see there, I actually failed to block an SP2 and I died. So I wasn't too confident about the game plan. So the second attempt, after we heal up and we go up against him at 50% health, we decide that we're just going to spam SP1 so that we can keep his power really low. And if it triggers protect, I just intercept and deal with it. So maybe this game plan would have worked out a little bit better than the first. Hard to say with me taking that SP2 to the face. It just makes it harder to judge. Human Torch probably could do really well. It depends on how quick you get Mangog down. There's an SP2. I think it's the only one I take in the second half. But the MD and the passive power gain could become an issue for Human Torch, I think, just in a longer fight versus this Mangog. I know that we've used Human Torch against him on other nodes, and he goes down insanely quick, but he's got half the health on mini boss nodes versus this boss node. So we're building the Fear of the Void here, and we're not gonna hold specials. We are just, there's the second one. I believe that's the last special 2 he will throw for the remainder of the fight. And now I'm just throwing SP1s. I'm not holding specials. If I trigger protect, I'm just gonna intercept. Still maintaining short combos to bait out a heavy. And you can see here his power bar is staying well under a bar. And it's because we have Fear of the Void, and we already have 4 debuffs up with Fear of the Void at 50% of its timer. So there's a protect I trigger. And we're just going to go ahead and find a window to intercept and remove it. Although I think he's just going to, nope, there we go, removed it right there. So that 50% went a lot smoother. Maybe the game plan there would have worked out a lot better, obviously, without taking an SP2 to the face. And we won that war with a pretty good spread. We weren't really worried about it. That was why we had an opportunity to kind of test out options on that Mangog and test strategies. Yeah, dying sucks, and that was my first death that season, but it was good to kind of feel the waters, because I have a feeling we're going to see that Mangog as a boss the more he shows up on people's rosters. So moving on to the next. Okay, so moving on to this next war against DSVG. I have this Stun Reflect mini against Annihilus, and then I have the node after Brute Force with Modok. I will be using Claire, and I will be using Killmonger. I've never taken Annihilus here. He's not a large champ, so I don't have to worry about Protect when using Claire. And Annihilus, if you're not using Quake, and obviously you can't use Quake here, a step back light intercept is usually the best route. So you're gonna see I'm gonna do that here. It's gonna remove his rod. I have MD. I immediately went to block to beta heavy, which you can now that the rod's gone, switched into incinerate, and now we're right at SP2, or just about, threw an incinerate so that I can parry stun him. The rod is back up, baited his SP1, dodged his SP1, blocked his SP1 now that the rod's gone, through SP2, and here's the big number damage. So 50% health, we're 30 seconds in, just keeping an eye on that stun reflect timer and making sure to throw incinerate when we can to remove it, so that we can parry stun reliably if it's there, or just block without him throwing his obliterates on us, and baiting heavies when the rod's gone if the stun reflect timer is up. Throwing that, there it is, bait out SP1, throw SP2, and he's done. So not a very difficult fight. It is kind of sketchy with it being the first time I've ever taken it. Moving on to a Modok that I'm very used to taking with Killmonger on either boss node or stun reflect. So this brute force node is no different than taking him on a boss node. The only thing I have to realize is that I need to wear down the stun timer using limber, so that I can get used to using counterpunch when I have the counterpunch charges. But same game plan as usual, push him to SP1, bait his SP1, throw my SP1, and use the counterpunch charges to remove protect if needed. Making sure to keep up true strikes, so we're constantly baiting out SP1 and retaliating. That way we never have to worry about auto block, keeping our combos short and backing off so that he doesn't immediately throw a heavy at us against the wall. There's a protect, do one hit, use counterpunch, it's gone. So easy intercept with Killmonger. This is not a difficult fight. Falcon could probably do this. So could a few, Mole Man, I know for a fact could do this. A lot easier, especially since the SP1 could remove the protect charges if triggered. But nothing you haven't seen me do before in my other Modok encounters using Killmonger. Another protect charge, so we're just going to use that counterpunch after throwing a couple hits and just remove it nice and easy. You could build the SP3 and take advantage of those bleed buildups, but no sense in changing the game plan. We haven't taken much damage at all and Modok's gone. So easy peasy. We did end up winning that war. It was a lot closer than we thought it was going to be. We did give quite a few more deaths than we normally do, but it was still a good war. Okay, moving on to our next war against PBT. 2 fights again here. Again, this thing on Stun Reflect. You saw me later in the season take this with Falcon, which probably will be my go-to for most wars from now on. But I did have a ramp G99, and this is who I was using versus thing here on Protect. All it is managing the rock stacks throughout the fight. So never putting yourself in a situation where he has 15 rock stacks and no bars of power. And if you are, hopefully you can figure out how to work in some blocked hits on him so that you can build him back to a bar of power. So what I like to do, full 5-hit combos if I know he's not going to be at a bar of power. If he is above a bar of power, do 4 hits and then go immediately into block to beta heavy and then go back into the combo, keeping track of rock stacks. So here we are at 15. He's got 1 bar of power, forcing it out. G99 does a great deal of damage here, ramped. Used it, so here we go. 4 block. He's got a bar of power, so we could get him to throw it, but let's hope we don't get cornered, so we do some blocked hits. 3 more to get him to 15. There we go, so now we're backing off, waiting for him to throw it. Rinse and repeat. So it's just managing rock stacks with G99, which isn't difficult, and she's doing great damage ramped up. I do have an Apoco boss after this, so it is important for me to end this fight with an SP3. So you saw me use a power start 1, that's just to make sure that I reach an SP3 before the end of the fight, which normally isn't an issue, but I haven't done it without a power start 1, so I'm usually overflowing on those. So this is a great opportunity to make sure that I end the fight ramped if I need it. So he's almost in that window. Probably gonna bait out 1 more special. Nope, just gonna, yeah, we're just gonna throw it right here. So, not too complicated, pretty straightforward. It does help you a lot to be able to get the AI to block and hit into his blocks when you're dealing with thing and power gain. Moving on to the Apoco boss. You saw me re-ramp G99. I think you guys have seen me fight Apoco as the boss with G99 before, so the game plan here is just to push him above 1 bar of power, almost to SP2 actually, and then bait out an SP1, block 2 hits of the beam, dash out of the last, and then go back into comboing him. So you'll see me do 4-hit combos in Turtle a lot here. We can use SP2, it does not trigger Protect. My Assassin Masteries I think are removed. They normally are, especially since I had Thing prior to this fight, so that I could manage his rock stacks and always guarantee that a hit will build a rock stack. But G99 is a good counter to this. Later in the season, I started using Void. The worry with her is if I take too much block damage, because I bring Guardian, if I take too much block damage and the regen buff at the end doesn't activate due to the Assassin Mastery. Plus trying to find a champion to ramp her up on. What I'm going to try, and I actually have a video of, is trying out Tigra in future Apocalypse boss fights. That way we don't have to worry about the Guardian synergy or a ramped up G99 for this fight. But all that takes is some practice. Just a pretty smooth fight, being aware when he's going to throw a heavy so you don't eat it. Building RSP2, baiting out the special when he's just below about 2 bars of power. Since we're all the way against his wall, no real worry about needing to throw in some blocked hits so that we don't get cornered, because we're being pretty aggressive at the start of the fight. Always turtling if I don't want him to throw a special quite yet. Doesn't always work, but most of the time it does. 60% of the time it works all the time. Getting near the end here. I'm pretty sure this is the last SP2 I'll throw. He might have 1 more special to throw after it. Hidden Dex out. And it's over. Yeah, so done that fight a lot. Still haven't died to an Apaco boss. Here we are. We won. Again, another close war. We actually kept our death count low, but they did a great job playing against us with that low death count as well. Thanks for checking in and watching. Hit subscribe and follow me on Twitter to keep an eye out for the next one.